Rachel and Maribeth.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe and Cass. And yeah, I want to say welcome, everybody. It's exciting to see you here. And let's see, I think we get a slide that says Blockly Roadmap, Year in Review, and what's next. So we're going to be up here and tell you about what we've done and tell you about where we're going next. I'm Rachel Fenichel. I lead the Blockly team. I was the one standing in front of the whiteboard, the flipboard in that one video. I still have the same sunglasses. Some things don't change. And
I'm Maribeth Moffatt, and I'm the tech lead at Blockly.
So in this talk, I'll start by doing some introductions to the team. And then Maribeth will talk about looking forward, looking back, kind of what we've done, what we'll do, how those connect. And then I'm going to dive into accessibility in the second part of this talk. Sorry, third part. So this is the current Blockly team. And if you're on this slide, when I say your name, please raise your hand. So you've met us. We have Aaron, Christopher, and Ben. Nicely organized. We did not promise this. And we also have Eric Pasternak, who's joining us on rotation this year. And on the operations side, huge shout out to Joe and Avinash for the amount of work that they did to get everybody here to get this all looking so good. Thank you. And I don't see Avinash. Okay. Ah, yes. Let's give a hand to Avinash. And we also have Mike, who is our project manager right now. Waving over there. And we have Ron, our tech writer. And then finally, one of the things that you do at Google is that you can be a 20% contributor, which means that you work on another team part-time. And I'd like to say thank you also to our 20%ers for the year.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about what we've done in the last year and how we plan to continue our work in the next year. So first off, our releases. We just released Blockly V12. This is our major release for the year. It gives us flexibility for toolbox customization, improved support for styling with CSS, and the main event is many, many features to support accessibility work. So you can check out our full release notes on GitHub if you haven't seen them yet. And that goes for all of our releases. So during the year, we also released minor and patch versions of Blockly as on an ad hoc basis. These let us push out new features and bug fixes to you whenever we need to. We also publish multiple betas. So betas are a way for you to give us feedback before we finalize a release. So we do announce our main betas through the Blockly Announce forum, so you can follow there for updates. Going forward, we intend to continue this pattern. So we will aim to release only one major version per year so that you don't have to deal with breaking changes too frequently. It is my intention that we will not release V13 until 2026. So yes, we'll hold your applause. So, of course, all the feature work that we release doesn't matter unless you all update. So one of our other big focus areas is helping you keep up to date with Blockly. So this year we've worked with several partners to update either from V11 to V12 or to modern Blockly for the first time in a very long time. So we do this by building the required features that cause partners to fork in the first place, building required features for new ideas that they have that they want to add to their products, or just to provide technical assistance on, I was doing something this way, and now I want to do it the modern Blockly way. How do I do that? We provide technical assistance in the forum. So if you own a product that uses Blockly and you are hitting roadblocks in your journey to upgrade to V12, I definitely encourage you, post in the forum. We want to help you. That is a main part of our jobs. We want you to be using Blockly V12, and we will help you get there. Our next focus area is plugins. Plugins are how the Blockly team and the community can provide additional capabilities that add on to Blockly. Plugins give us more flexibility to add features that everyone may not want, so we don't want to add them to core to make everyone use them. They're optional. You can install the ones that work for your product. Our team maintains more than 30 plugins now, and you can check these out on our plugin showcase site. This year, our focus has been on the keyboard navigation plugin that we just published, which you'll be hearing more about from Rachel in this talk and in many other talks at this summit. So we also encourage you to publish your own plugins. A couple of you have, and we appreciate that, and we also advertise those for you on our plugin showcase site. So if you've developed a cool feature, you want to share it with the wider Blockly community, if you release it as a plugin, we will advertise it for you with the rest of our plugins. And of course, we also welcome PRs to fix issues in plugins. So if your pet plugin has some issue, feel free to send us a PR to fix it. And community involvement is another one of the areas that we work on each and every year. So this year is our biggest summit yet. We've expanded the conversation to include curriculum, product, accessibility experts, and more. So as you chatted with people that you didn't know around you, they could be from anywhere in their companies. This is strengthening our ability to share ideas, collaborate, and innovate. So this year, the summit has actually grown large enough that for the first time, we're running multiple tracks. Doing it this way means we can hear and learn from more of you. We have a lot of talks this year, and so you can choose the track that makes the most sense for your role or your interest. We also launched our accessibility fund this year, which we'll get an update on soon. And we continue to staff our community forum where you can post technical or curricular questions or share your product updates. So participating in the forum is one way that you can give back to the Blockly community. Thanks to those of you who answer forum questions routinely, with special thanks to Mark Friedman for your consistent effort with the forum. We really appreciate it. This year, we also launched a separate Google group specifically for discussion about accessibility. So if you want to get updates about accessibility or ask for help recruiting participants for accessibility studies, you can do that in the Blockly-accessibility group on Google Groups. And one final note about community, there are all kinds of Blockly experts here from all kinds of companies and organizations. Some of those organizations might be hiring, some of those might be doing the opposite of that. So I encourage you, if your company does have open roles right now for Blockly experts, please feel free to let the word spread at the block party on the roof later today. And one more update area is documentation. So this year we hired Ron as our tech writer, and Ron did an extensive audit of all of our documentation and made many, many improvements there. So if you browse our documentation site, I'm sure that you've already noticed, but if you want to get more detailed updates about what Ron has been up to, he's giving a talk later at the summit. So now I want to talk a little bit about how the Blockly team approaches our development cycles. So we tend to go through these cycles of growth and consolidation. So with the release of Blockly V12, we just finished a very big growth cycle where we added all of these fancy new features, but we also probably added some bugs and technical debt. Now that that release is out, we have a period of time where we're focused on cleaning up those features, moving code into its final location, paying down our technical debt, fixing bugs, and we're also planning for what's next. For the past several years, we've picked a focus area for the theme of the major work that we're doing during the year. So that's how we converted our code base to TypeScript. We committed to unforking a bunch of your projects. We developed many of our plugins by picking those as our focus areas. This year, our focus has been on accessibility and the keyboard navigation plugin. So we're currently in the planning phase for our next focus area. There are several areas that we are thinking about exploring, such as even more accessibility, providing good defaults for keyboard navigation, and other accessibility features. Doing more to leverage our expertise in curriculum development. We could look at things that our industry partners are using. Blockly has long been focused primarily on education while welcoming the use by industry, but we could reach out more directly to our industry users. Or we could address one of Blockly's longest standing and very complicated feature requests, which is blocks to text. So while we haven't picked our next focus area yet, know that we're still working hard on many of the accessibility features that we have just launched and will launch. And with that, I'll turn it over to Rachel to take a deeper dive into accessibility.
Thank you. All right, so as Maribeth just said, for the past year and a half, our big focus has been accessibility. And when I say accessibility, I mean making it possible for anyone to use Blockly and things that use Blockly. There are a lot of different things that can mean. This is kind of, you have to look broadly at what the needs are, how you can meet them. This takes a lot of creativity. It's a really fun and interesting area to work in. And in this section, I'm going to show you what we've done, and then I'll talk you through why we've been working on this, what we've done so far, and what the future looks like, and of course, what we need from you. So first off, I am extremely proud to announce that we have Keyboard Navigation v1.0 launched as of Friday. This is a huge project. This has taken the entire team. This has been done in close collaboration with some folks at Microbit. We've also worked with code.org. We've worked with Scratch. We've worked with MakeCode. And this plugin is compatible with Blockly v12. It adds keyboard shortcuts for common actions. So if you look at this over here, you can see the key presses are in the yellow, and this is showing navigating through the workspace and editing the workspace, including moving blocks, without using a mouse. So we are going to have a lot of talks about this at the summit, and there will be talks from Christopher and Ben, both about developing this, the process of developing this, and what we have in it. We're also going to have talks directly about it from the Microbit team coming up fairly soon. And then I said I'd talk about why. Now, the obvious reason is because it's accessibility, it's important. This is something we should do. But also, in 2023 and 2024, we had a lot of people coming to us and asking us if we had an accessibility conformance report, whether we could prove that we were accessible. And part of this is because there's been recent legislation in the United States about accessibility of digital tools. These are not the only things that happened, but I do want to call out two in particular. Maryland State Bill 617 requires that all software used in classrooms meet accessibility requirements, and there's a definition there. And says that schools and districts may not use software that does not meet those requirements. There also has been a new interpretation of the Americans with Disabilities Act in 2024, saying state and local government websites, web content, and apps need to also meet this, and that does explicitly apply to schools, public schools, community colleges, and public universities. So we had a lot of people coming to us asking about this, and also saying, oh, there's a deadline coming up. That deadline is somewhere in 2025, 2026. You know, we better get on that. And we said, we would love to. We've been waiting for this moment. We're really excited to work on this. So we first took a look around. And this coincided with my working on a master's in education, and specifically taking some classes on special education, taking classes on visual impairment, taking classes on the history of special education in the US. And so did some reading, did some literature reviews, looked around, and then we looked around at all of the products that we had and said, this is not a problem that can be solved by just the Blockly team. This is also not a problem that can be solved by any one product team. And so we built a coalition from all of those people who were coming to us and saying, hey, we want to do something. And we said, okay, if we can design and build a unified way of doing this, a standard way of doing this, will you use it? And we got buy-in. So we have that coalition. We've been working on that. And we have agreement from various people, okay, they'll need to work on not only Blockly's accessibility, the accessibility of the rest of the page, the accessibility of curricular resources. I'm speaking here mostly about education. This applies everywhere. Education has been the focus for us right now. So we built that coalition. We got agreement. A lot of those folks are here. And then we had this problem where it was like, okay, everyone's interested in this, but they're telling us they don't have funding to do it. And I was talking to someone about this, and she said approximately, Rachel, this is Google. And we are google.org. And so from that came the funding for working on this, distributing funding to various folks to work on all the parts of it that are not the core Blockly side. And at the same time, we committed our team to doing technical work on this. So the Blockly Accessibility Fund was a $5 million fund. and we've awarded it to quite a few grantees who are here and some who I think couldn't make it to improve the accessibility of Blockly-based products writ large. And we tried to spread out this money so that we had some folks who are working on shorter term things. So what can we do for near term accessibility and compliance in products? That could even include Blockly updates, because in order to use what we're working on, you need to be on modern Blockly. We also had funding for longer term projects, including research about the effectiveness of this, because it's all well and good to build all these things, but if we build it, say it works, and never check, we're not doing our job right. So what's next for us as the Blockly team? One of the big things is the technical work, screen reader support. So we've been designing with screen readers in mind, and Ben has a talk about all the complexity that came out of doing that design. There's a lot of implementation that follows. We basically said we need to not paint ourselves into a corner, and then later we will go finish that off, and so that's coming up. And that's planned for this year. We also want to iterate on feedback. So we've been doing user tests, especially we've been doing user tests with the Microbit folks, but we need to do more. And we really need all of you to be using this so that we can actually get feedback. And more than that, we need that feedback to actually then reach back to us, because the thing is, if your users use it and then don't tell you, that's a problem. If they use it and they tell you what went wrong and you don't tell us, we still don't know and we can't fix it. So we're going to iterate on that as we hear from you, and also there are obviously things left after the release that we have hanging that we'd love to work on. And then the last thing here is moving code to core. So we built this as a plugin for flexibility. The alternative is that every time we make a change, we have to do a breaking change of core, and then Maribeth comes along and gives me the face. It's like, don't do that. And so we built it as a plugin. We're going to keep it as a plugin for a while because we are continuing to iterate on it a lot. The goal is that this becomes part of core Blockly. Accessibility is a first-class feature. It should not be something that you have to opt into to add on. And now, of course, is the call for action. What's next for you? As I said, we do need you to update. We need you to use the plugin, and we also need you to make it visible to your users. We need you to actually tell them that it's there. So a common problem is, oh, we have all these accessibility features. Do you have anything that tells people where they are? No. How do you turn it on? Oh, you hit this one button. Right? So we need you to do that. We also need you to do accessibility audits. And those audits are not just on the programming environment, but also broadly on the rest of your page, on your curriculum materials. And the part of this that you then publish is called an accessibility conformance report. And this is what districts are looking for when they're trying to say, is this product accessible? Am I allowed to use it? And user testing. So I've talked about it in terms of exposing it to users and getting feedback, but that's actually quite different from doing sustained, focused user testing where you're reaching out and finding users with disabilities and hearing from them. We know that this is tricky because there is no such thing as your average user with visual impairment, for instance. There are a lot of people here who have contacts, who are able to help find people, help recruit for those studies. Definitely ask around if that's a thing that your team is going to do. We also have the community on the Blockly accessibility mailing list that are able to help with that as well. And one last thing on here, kind of on a more personal note, I do want to talk a little bit about the other reason that this has been so important to me and the thing that I've been working on a ton this year. So the Blockly keyboard navigation plugin, the code for that, the first commit from that, I committed when I was at a hospital with my dad. And my father died from cancer last May, and I was there with him, and he said, stop looking at me, you don't need to sit there and look at me, in a New York accent. And I said, I'm not looking at you, I'm working on something. So this is when I was able to start working on that code, but also I got to tell him about this. I got to tell him about the accessibility fund, I got to tell him that I was working on this, and I got to say, Dad, this is what I'm doing to make things better. And so that's really been a big push, and that's part of why I'm so happy a year later to say we have published this. We have this out there. It's much bigger than it was at that point when we started. And with that, we're going to go to questions. And I believe we'll have mics around. They are running one to you right now.
So when you have a website that has Blockly in one place but has other elements, are we coming up with any suggestions or guidelines about how to navigate to that space and away from that space in particular? So how do you go to, okay, now I want to be in Blockly, now I want to go to other places? Or is there guidance there?
Yeah, so there kind of are two parts. One is technically, what should you do? Like, what do you need to implement for this to work? And again, Ben has spent a ton of time making it so that if you tab, you can get there, and if you shift tab, you can get away. And then this is shockingly difficult. And then also we've seen some good experiments for how to jump or show different regions and show how to move between regions on the page coming from MakeCode and Microbit. Those aren't yet formalized into suggestions because I don't think we have sufficient testing on them to say this is the best way, but there's already discussion. And generally we're talking about it in terms of regions. So you have a navigation region, you have a block editor region, you have a runtime region, and this matches with the idea of regions in ARIA and in navigation.
So in Blockly with the mouse, there's various defaults. For example, when you pick up something in a sequence, it takes everything after it. Do you preserve those sort of behaviors when you're working with the cursor? How do you work with taking something out, detaching, retaching?
Yeah, so I'm seeing some smiles from Microbit because this was a big question with a lot of back and forth. Broadly, where possible, we are attempting to preserve the same behavior that we had for mouse and for keyboard. This is the principle of least surprise. There are places where it's like there's actually a choice here, and it's not, you can't infer which thing the person wants to do. Fortunately, we have shift. So we have things like you can say M to move a block and shift M to move that block in the stack, which I believe is an open bug. I believe you actually can't do the latter right now, but you will real soon.
This work is fantastic, and I'm so excited for it. Do you have within your documentation the ability to show what the keyboard shortcuts will be? Is that going to be something that's built into the library, or does everyone need to have that information on their own page?
Right now, we do have the default experience when you install the keyboard navigation plugin. I think it is the / key, and it will bring up a modal for all of the available keyboard shortcuts. But what we provide that as a default experience, but we think the best solution would be for products to make their own implementation that integrates more deeply with your product, because you might have other keyboard shortcuts that Blockly doesn't know about that you should explain. And you might want a different experience that isn't modal, so you might want to show it in a pane alongside the code. So we provide ways for you to implement a better experience for your users than our default, but we do provide a default.
And we aim to, you can remap keyboard shortcuts in Blockly. This is a feature that we already had. We expect this to be used because one of like for instance for eye gaze, one of the things is then mapping it to a specific shortcut, and you might want to have a shortcut that does multiple things. For the defaults, we're really going to push everyone to use the same shortcuts. And this is like saying, you know that Control S is going to get you save. We want a similar idea going across all of the products, and then deviations only where it's kind of justified and necessary.
So that was actually the question I was going to ask. The standardization is really important. Firstly, thank you. This is amazing. And so the fact that you have this kind of global group of folks who are trying to address these really hard questions, it's really important. So beyond the legal requirements, it's really important from an ethical perspective and from just doing the right thing. But this idea of standardization is really, really important. And so you've got a lot of the people at the table around Blockly. Are you going to be putting out some guidance for like kind of the broader community around trying to be as consistent as we possibly can around these like navigation shortcuts and so forth.
Yeah, that's in the documentation, which we'll be following. And that's also, again, that's going to partly come as we're seeing how people use it. We don't want to put out something that says it's definitive and then have the first couple new groups use it and say, oh, actually, we need to change that. But that is on the list for this year. And that guidance will be aimed at developers, but also we're talking to product folks here, and we're also talking in terms of educators. Like a lot of this, as Maribeth said, each product will have to have something where they then present things to educators. We're going to try to provide guidance so that you don't have to reinvent all of that every time.
I had a question about your roadmap. You had a lot of things on there, including industry, curriculum, more accessibility, blocks to text. Just curious, are you planning to do all of this next year? Or these were just like ideas?
No, these are, each year we pick one focus area, so we will at most pick one of those to focus on, and we haven't decided. So we do want to hear from you. If you have something that you really think that we should be working on, we want to hear it from it, but yes, only one. Unless if we like quadruple in size, then maybe we can talk about it.
So internationalization has been a big feature of Blockly, and I think is one of the reasons why we've done so well, at least at App Inventor, is because people can use the environment in their own language rather than having to necessarily learn English as a precursor. How is that tying into the shortcuts at all, if at all? Is that something you've looked at, or are you basically going to assume like B is, open the blocks toolkit, and that's going to be true regardless of what your native language is?
I think we don't have a firm position on that yet. It's another one where we've been trying to not paint ourselves into a corner. But I think there's going to be, we will look, for instance, at general guidelines for how to choose what those are. It's not obvious what the solution there is. It's not obvious how much you need to say this is a mnemonic versus this is just a letter that you press.
One thing is that it is totally possible to change them based on the locale. If you want to do that, if you want to try it out, you can. And all of the default text in the plugin right now is in blockly.message, so it is localizable, and that goes for the buttons as well. So when you right-click, we show the keyboard shortcuts that would activate a particular item in the context menu, and we get that shortcut out of the registry so that we know what is the current button you should press to press move. So it is possible right now, and what we're not sure about is if we want to recommend that you actively do that.
Hi. Since Blockly is such a visual medium, and typically graphics are the most difficult part of accessibility, do you have any plans to integrate any special functionality in Chrome DevTools in the accessibility functions in that?
For developers or for the end users?
For developers to test.
I think I'd love to talk to you more about what you have in mind later, because I think in general what we're trying to do is that if you're trying to debug it, you can, we're representing sufficient information that you are able to go just inspect it and say, where am I? But if there's specific things you have in mind, I would love to hear about them.
Oh, thank
you. Hi, Hannah, code.org. We heard from one of the recent user tests that a lot of the accessibility users were having trouble seeing like a focus state on a block. If you find that something like that is a theme across all of the user testing, as more companies like code.org, for instance, is rolling out user tests, how will kind of like major feature requests like that fit into a roadmap when you have something like a screen reader goal for the next year?
So some of that, I think that's in the roadmap as responding to that feedback that we get. Obviously, the exact planning will have to depend on how big the changes are. But we did build in a pretty decent degree of flexibility. So for instance, a lot of the styling we chose to do with CSS so that someone can change it to match better with whatever their, make it have better contrast against their environment. Knock on wood that we don't have any changes that require us to tear down the whole thing and rebuild it. That would be a bummer. But we will we have time scheduled.
Cool, thanks.
I have time for two more questions.
Thank you again for all of the effort that you've put in towards accessibility. I mean, this is incredible to be able to reach more users. I think the question I have is around documentation. So one of the big challenges that we have at Vex is supporting all the different hardware platforms and all of the different kind of permutations of platforms is we've been very reliant on screenshots of blocks to be able to document. And so we've actually undertaken in the last year to basically hack the Blockly engine to make a super lightweight version so that now all of our blocks are screen reader and actually rendered in real time to be able to then make it so that then it actually reads as plain text. I guess that's not sustainable longer term as Blockly continues to improve, at least from our standpoint. So I didn't know if on the roadmap if there was anything related to how we can basically make it so that it's easier to generate blocks outside of, say, the Blockly engine itself or in line in other HTML mediums.
Well, I know we're not rewriting it in Canvas. Actually, generating documentation that way has been the suggested approach for at least 10 years. So doing live rendered blocks in a lightweight environment, you can do pre-rendering or not, but that's generally been the suggested one for specifically that reason. I don't think that's going to change. But again, if there are specific bits of this that you want to talk about that are the parts you're particularly interested in, would love to hear more.
Yeah, one of the biggest challenges is the internationalization. So being able to then align, okay, here's the English blocks, and then when we then put 25 other languages, then the image permutations just become astronomical at that point. So that's been kind of aligning the dictionaries between the coding language and then the documentation. There's a lot of hurdles to make everything kind of more sustainable. So yeah, I would love to discuss more.
Yeah, you should come find me later in the summit because we do have a solution to this, and we can talk about it.
Great, thank you.
So just kind of following up on a previous discussion about the CSS, does that finally mean that the trash can and the other controls will be SVG and stylable?
We're working on it.
Thank you.
Aaron will be talking about what we've been up to in V12, and that includes a bunch of changes to get to much more of using CSS instead of using anything custom in terms of styling.
There we go. Contrast was an issue, and so we had changed all of ours to be black. And then, of course, people were like, let's do dark mode, and of course, black on black doesn't work. So, but I don't want gray on black because it also wasn't passing the AAA WCAG stuff.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. I think that's it for us. And I'd like to pass it on. And next up, we have Josh Caldwell, the CS curriculum lead.